So I'm right here on Blue Star Memorial Highway, about to give the rest of my third part of my testimony about my verbal part of my testimony about my pregnancy. So after Inger reset my court date she reset it to May 6th, I think it was, 2019, and she was saying that they were trying to kind of switch up what the witness was saying, and that his wife was trying to say something different now, and that the man didn't want his wife trying to get involved because she wasn't even there, and that he was kind of still sticking to the same thing, but that the man's wife, because it was their restaurant, that she wanted to say something different happened. And then so they took me back in the jail, and they kept poisoning my trays and commissary. And my next court date came, they kept denying me extra food. I kept asking for a doctor, kept screaming for a doctor. They kept refusing, kept saying I'm not pregnant, and keeping me in the back of the segregated housing units. And let's just stick to the evidence. I think the most important thing is the court dates that I went to and what was taking place. Yeah, what they were doing to me, in the jail is a lot too. But I didn't get any prenatal care, so no vitamins or anything like that. And I went to my May 6th court date, and Judge Patty Maginnis didn't show up. Instead, we went to Judge Tracy Gilbert's courtroom. That's a male, because at first I thought it was a female, and I didn't even know who his name was at the time, because I thought we were going to Judge Patty Maginnis courtroom in 435 Conroe Courthouse. But instead we went in the same, I think Tracy isn't he's in Conroe, I think, but it's not the same courtroom as Patty. And so we went, he's a family court judge, so he's not a criminal court judge. And they had me go in his courtroom with all the other inmates. They brought us into his courtroom and said that Patty was not there that day, that she was sick. They said that she had got a cold. And this was the day that I think I was supposed to see how I plead in front of Patty. Because I was been waiting to say how I plead in front of Patty, but she didn't show. And they were saying that she was sick, so that we were going to do everything in Judge Tracy Gilbert's courtroom. And I didn't even know that's what his name was at the time. I just remember his face. So we went in his courtroom, and all of us sat down, and they were doing skits with white inmates where they had probation for stuff, and they were trying to be all in my face because I had shot a gun, but talking to their lawyers and stuff. And then my lawyer came, and when Inger Chandler came, it was May 2019, we was in Judge Tracy Gilbert courtroom. Patty Maginnis didn't show, and Inger had gave me a piece of paper, and it said, how do I plead, on the piece of paper for a case. They had dropped some of the charges, so the charges that they were charging me for was aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and they were charging me with child endangerment. But as far as the dispersing a weapon with the public, dispersing a weapon in a public place, that was not on the charge piece of paper anymore. And then the child negligence charge was not on the charge piece of paper anymore. But the aggravated assault with a deadly weapon charge was still on there. And the child endangerment, they were saying that I endangered my own child for protecting him. And my investigator went and reenacted the scene. And the way that I put the gun to Austin's leg, he said nobody was in danger of being shot but Austin. He said the baby was up here. Austin was squeezing him right here by his rib cage, and I shot him down at the bottom by his leg so I wouldn't hit Halo, Melbourne Halo. I wasn't even in the mother's mind. You thinking about your child. You're not gonna harm your child. You trying to help them. And And Jim was like, no, nobody was in danger of being hurt but the perpetrator, but the person who was being violent, which was Austin, and he was the one who got hurt. So they still had the child endangerment charge on there. My son did not get hurt, only Austin got hurt, and he was the one being violent with us. And they still had the child endangerment charge on the piece of paper. So I asked Inger if I would be able to plead in front of Patty Maginnis, and she said no. She was like, she said I could not, that I didn't have to do that. She said all I had to do was just sign the piece of paper, and then she would tell Patty that's how I pled. So I plead not guilty to the charges, and she reset. They did a reset for me for August 22nd. 2019 to be the pretrial, what they called a docket call, which is, I guess, another term for the pretrial, where they just try to make sure everything is together before the trial with both parties or whatever. And so that pretty much was that. And I told her that I was pregnant at that day. I said I'm pregnant, and they still denying me medical care. And she said, well, I thought you had a miscarriage. And I kept telling her, no, I didn't. The baby is still alive, and they're not giving me the medical care. And then they had all these therapists coming in there trying to make it seem like I was a mental patient for saying that I was pregnant. And Inger had this one man come up there on behalf of Inger saying that he was going to be representing on the stand to say what my mental health was as far as the abuse, and he needed to know everything. So I told him, at first I wouldn't talk to him because I didn't trust him, but then he came up there again, and Jim McDougal told me to tell him everything, and so that could help me in my trial. So I told him that I was pregnant and that they was back there denying me medical care, and I showed him my stomach, and I told him how much Austin was abusing me, and he said that he would be the one to help the defense as far as, what if I would be found guilty, that he needed to know about all the abuse. And I told him that I was pregnant and that they were denying me medical care, and that's why I was afraid to talk to him, because I felt like I could not trust anybody when people were denying my pregnancy. I just got something to drink from this the Stratford bar. God bless the hands that gave me a cup of water and some ice. But anyway, let me keep going. So basically, hopefully they don't get in trouble for that, because they're supposed to not give me food or water anywhere right now in the United States, so that my baby bump will be small. But let me just finish with the evidence. And so, Jesus, help me, Father God, anoint me, please, Lord Jesus. So they reset the court date from May 6, 2019 to August 22nd, 2019. And this entire time, I was calling my family. I was calling Andrew Jones, my father, screaming, crying on the phone, saying, Daddy, I'm back here, I'm pregnant, they starving me, they poisoning the food. He said he contacted the news, but that's all that he could do. I called my sister, Shakina. I called my sisters. Like, my dad would put commissary money on there once or twice, and then they poisoned it. And I couldn't even eat it. And so they had all kind of people in there eating stuff that was tampered with, and they just was used to it, I guess. But being that I was pregnant, and they were lying about it, I wouldn't eat it. I was like, I'd rather starve than to eat something where somebody done put something in it. You know what I'm saying? And that's how I lost 50 pounds in the cell. I ended up being light skin and bone with this little bitty tiny baby bump. By the time it was time for me to go to the docket call, and I was like almost 200 pounds when I got in the jail. But then when I went to weigh myself, when I went to the infirmary trying to get a pregnancy test and get extra food, I went and asked them for extra food. They were saying that I couldn't get it, and I was weighing myself. I was 142 pounds, and I had been pregnant for almost full term. And so I remember, Father God, anoint me. After they brought me out of one of the cells where they tried to murder me, they had brought me back to a segregated housing unit, and they kept moving me from cell to cell. I don't know exactly why they kept moving me into different cells, but some of the time I know why they did, but other times I didn't know why. And then so they put me in this segregated housing unit, and I felt my body start eating itself. And then I felt this little baby turning inside. I felt a whole bunch of fetal movement turning inside my body. And then I got up and looked at it again, and I saw that this baby bump had got a little bigger. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, I'm pregnant, and it was starting to eat my body. So I'll be right there with feeling this baby in my body growing, and then my arms was shrinking, and my thighs started shrinking. All my butt left, and I had a flat pancake butt. And then I was skinnier than all the white girls and everybody, and I had this little baby bump. So to sustain the baby, my body ate itself, and I was skinny and bone. I'd never been that skinny before in my life. And I asked to go to, they had served me a meal with a very burnt piece of meat that I could not bite. It was so hard. And so I asked them to reserve me a meal, and then I told them that I was pregnant and that the nurses and doctors had not confirmed my pregnancy yet. They had said they needed to order a blood test and had not ordered the blood test yet. So they were saying that I could not get any extra food or trays until then, and then they just started straight up poisoning the one tray that they were giving me, and still denying me the main doctor, because I was asking to see the doctor for him to do a physical examination on my belly, and that he would be able to tell that I was pregnant, and then he kept refusing, saying that I had to go through the nurses, and if the nurses were saying that it was that the pregnancy was negative, that the tests were negative, that's all they could do for me. They didn't have to do anything else. And then they were poisoning the trays. Father God, please anoint me. Oh, I'm sorry, you guys. And so because people swarming all around, and there's white women walking around trying to cover this up, and it's just really taking a toll on me. God, please help me to be able to keep telling. So I went to the nursing infirmary, and I talked to a white woman, and I told her that I didn't have that much fetal movement with Melby in the beginning stages like that. And I told her it was very weird that I was that small and that I was having that much fetal movement, and that I knew that I was pregnant and that I needed to get extra tray. And then she said, well, we're going to wait on the results, or you can't get no food. And then one of the ladies was like, oh, well, you went this long without having food. A little longer ain't going to hurt. And so and they ended up putting me back there and poisoning the hell out them goddamn trays. It was something that I could smell, something that I could taste, something that, you just know. And so anyway, so it was time to go to before my docket call, they sued me for my son. So before the pretrial, they decided to sue me for my baby, and this white man, they had called me up there. I was working on my case. I was working on the evidence. Y'all see how I be like the library. They had me in this segregated housing unit in the back of the Montgomery County Jail. I had 3 translations of the Bible. I had books by T.D. Jakes, Joyce Meyer, Joel Osteen. I was pretty, just focused. And I was working on my case, and they had this white man come up to the jail to do a visitation with me, and he was like, you're being sued, like you're being served. And I'm like, what? And so I open up the paper, and he's like, and it shows that I'm being sued for custody of my son by Austin John Metter, by his father, and he was the one who was attacking us, and who I'm pregnant by. That's Melbourne's father, the convicted felon with all the 8 charges, the one who's been doing meth since he was 14. Yeah, and so they was allowing him now to sue me out of Judge Tracy Gilbert's courtroom. So when Patty Maginnis did not show up, and we were ended up in that man's courtroom, that was Judge Tracy Gilbert's courtroom. But I did not know that was his name, because I didn't know who he was. They just said this was somebody who was filling in for Patty that day. I never spoke with him. I actually spoke with only Ingrid Chandler. So when they were saying Judge Tracy, I'm thinking it was a female the whole time until I actually showed up to the family court date. But let me drink a water. So which he said I was being sued. And I told him, I said, how y'all gonna sue me for my baby? I said, how are y'all gonna let the man who was attacking me and my son sue me for my child? And so he said, well, there won't. I said, I'm going to trial, and y'all suing me before the trial. Y'all gonna let him sue me for custody of my baby before a trial where he was attacking me and I shot him, and you trying to give him my baby? I said, what kind of mess is that? I said, I shot him while he was attacking my baby. I said, so why would y'all want to give him custody of my baby before the trial? And I said, that's illegal. He was like, well, there's not going to be a trial. He said, this is the trial. That's what the white man said. He was like, this is the trial. And I said, I looked at him and I was like, you guys got to be kidding me. I was like, y'all have to be freaking kidding me. And then so they set a court date for me to have to be sued by Austin in family court in Judge Tracy courtroom, which is in Conroe, Texas as well, right around wherever Judge Patty Imagine's courtroom is. I don't know, but you can look him up and find him. And so they had set a court date for me to go in there and go against Austin and see who would get the baby. But they still had my criminal court case too set for my trial date was set for September 3rd, 2019, but my docket trial, my pre-trial date was set for August 22nd, 2019. So they were trying to hurry up and let Austin sue me for custody of my baby. And I had a vision of my little sister saying, oh, that's Austin's son now, that ain't your son now. And while they was in there leaving me in there, letting these people do this to me, knowing that I was innocent. So then I had seen a vision of my sister saying that that's going to be Austin's son now. And then all of a sudden now they trying to sue me, let Austin sue me for my baby. And so I was like, the court date was for July, I think, June or July, because it was between the dates of my pretrial. So my pretrial was August 22nd, 2019. So the months of March, April, between the months of April, June, and July was when they was doing all this rigging in the family court to try to use litigation abuse to take my son from me, because it's litigation abuse, it's fraudulence. You fraudulently went and tried to get custody of my son while I was in a jail cell for protecting us. Is litigation abuse on a mother. He was abusing me and my son, and you cannot force a victim and a child to have contact with an abuser through the courts when you know that we're trying to get away from him and press charges on him. So anyway, they ended up taking us to some court date and in Judge Tracy courtroom and asking me my income and saying that I didn't have any income while I'm incarcerated, and then setting a court date for me and Austin to go against each other, because at first they wanted me to just let Austin have custody of my baby, but I said no. So they was like, well, you're gonna have to go to trial and you're gonna have to go up against Austin and his lawyer if you don't just sign over your rights. And I was like, well, I'm not signing over my rights, then I'll just go to trial. And I told Inger Chandler, I said, do you know that they suing me for my baby in family court while I'm waiting on this trial, this, and I was right there at the end, been poisoned, denied medical care, and God told me that I was not guilty and that I was gonna get released. That's what God told me. So Inger was like, oh, well, I can't represent you in the family court. She said, I can only represent you for your criminal charges. And then so I asked in Judge Tracy courtroom, I said, can you appoint me a lawyer to represent me, because I knew there is no way that any lawyer is gonna let Austin get custody of my child. And then they said, no, we cannot get you an appointed lawyer in family courtroom. And my family was not answering my phones. They wasn't even getting me a lawyer for my criminal charges, and let alone get me a lawyer for my family court for my son. So I went to go to trial to go up against Austin, and I won the court case against Austin. And my phone and storage is getting full, so I'm about to go ahead and head on my journey, and I'm going to go into After this loads, I'm gonna go into part 4 of my verbal testimony about my pregnancy, because it's all tied up to what happened on this criminal court case between me and Austin. And this is very, very important information because I won that trial against